Hey there. So, welcome back to this afternoon's session. I'm Rich McFarlane. Worked with Bill for about 15 years on many things. So I run all the MSc cybersecurity courses here at Napier. Co-director of our Centre of Excellence in Education and Teaching. So if anyone's got any aspirations of doing an MSc or a PhD or anything, feel free to come and have a chat. So yeah, we had some excellent discussions this morning on a whole range of topics. And we're going to get into some of the topics that we talked about earlier and some other exciting topics, or maybe even more exciting, quite practical this afternoon. So we've got three great speakers. And first up, looking at trusted data sharing platforms. Amit, Gupta.
Correct.
And to remind myself, it's
Acubed.IT.
Yes. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
So this is a company founded by Amit, and he's the CEO, and they actually build these systems. So an interesting talk about actual systems working.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm assuming you can hear me okay. Wonderful. Cool. Excellent. So I'll probably, before we jump into the subject itself, so I'll give you a little bit background about me. So my name is Amit Gupta. I'm a CEO of Acubed.IT, brought up in India, in Delhi. And before coming to UK, I worked in USA, Australia, Germany, Spain, and few other countries, and then landed into UK. Over last 15 years, I've been working in the national security and defense space and doing project specifically in the national security space. So anything which I'm going to discuss may have some conflicting viewpoints of the discussions we had since morning. Why I'm here? We started following Professor Bill almost 5 years ago for cryptography knowledge and his blog post. But over last 2 years, we approached Professor Bill to start doing some collaborations together. So we're doing knowledge transfer program on advanced cryptography, which include homomorphic, PQC, ABE, MAAB, and few other topics. But we're also doing a PhD starting hopefully from October onwards as well. Few disclaimers. Please do remind me for the time if I'm going over. Bill, yes, please do remind me. My experience is mostly in the defense and national security space, and hence my opinion or the discussion which I'm going to do is very much opinionated or influenced by the experience I have. I'm now non-technical because I'm CEO, as a few of the people said before. You end up doing a lot more than just writing the code, which I used to do in the past. One more thing, I've attended few Professor Bill's presentations, and when Professor Bill present, you actually get lost into those presentations because the way you present. So I have under pressure that to live up to the mark. So regarding the conflicting views, so before I jump into my subject itself, so I'm going to discuss a couple of things which was discussed since morning. Martin H. that create a framework and reference architecture, fully agree, fully support that. That's how we should be doing it. Martin T. and Chris that do you trust government for holding data? You know what? You may or may not trust, but you don't have a choice. Most of you have done the passport forms, driving license, and some of you may have done the vetting forms, security clearances. An amount of data government hold about you is, you won't believe it, the amount of data exists in the government systems. So you do trust or not, there is no choice. What we can do is to fix how you protect that data. How you protect what happened to the MOD in the past, or when the leak happened regarding some of their payroll data. How do you protect that information? Even that get compromised, how do you protect that data? The space I work in, we make a working assumption, and the working assumption is everything, and I meant everything on official space and official classification will get compromised. The hostile state actor, People who need to read that information, they will be able to access that information. And that's the reality. So the reality is whatever is in the official space, if it's in the official space, and if it's not using the right crypto mechanisms, people, the hostile state actor can read that information. That is a one working assumption we normally work with. A little bit about Acubed.IT. So Acubed.IT was formed in 2017 by three different people, and it was formed because we were working on a higher classification information. So Acubed.IT, or me as a resource, when working for government or defense or national security, we mostly work on the higher classification systems more than the official systems. And we, as a company, has built or have been involved into building some of those systems for NS or defense space. Okay, I think the first is basically knowing the audience. Is I want to know from some of you, please put your hand up if you're working in this space. And data aggregation, wonderful. At least we know somebody. Data aggregation is an issue that you came across on the low side. If you put a hand up, it means if you know the subject, it is the common one of the most common problem in the government and defense, in HMG and defense space. Because some of the people here may not know the context of classifications and air gap systems. So I'm going to, before I jump into the solution itself, I have to set up the context. And to set up the context, I'm just going to take you step back to understand what I mean by these air gap systems. Security classifications for HMG and defense. Uh, most systems which is connected to internet, we call it as in official, in the HMG and defense space, we call it as they are official systems or official sensitive systems. It means they're connected to internet, and as I can access it from here, people on the other side of the world can also access that system. But in HMG, there are three high level classifications. There is a fourth one, but let's talk about three different classifications. In HMG or defense, we normally call about high level classifications: official, secret, and top secret. And we talk about the secret and top secrets, those are air gap systems. In the banks or some not high threat clubs, you call it as high trust and low trust. They may not be air gapped, but you say it as a high trust and low trust. Air gap systems. So what exactly the air gap systems are? And I'll come to the solution in a few minutes. But from an air gap system point of view, secret or top secret environments are not accessible from internet. You are in the buildings, walking into the building. So let's assume you have a system. Unfortunately, I can't use any of the examples of projects I work on. But let's assume you're working on a particular project. If you need to access data, which is on the secret or top secret environments, you will have to walk into the building and sometime behind very strong doors and leave everything you have connected to Bluetooth and Wi-Fi before you can actually access any of the system. They are properly air gap systems. So when I say air gap means they're not connected to the internet. That's how the world used to work. And I'll tell you a little bit more. So what exactly the problem with the air gap system? So yes, we work with the air gap system. So but what exactly the problem is? The problem with the air gap systems is we in HMG or in defense, we work in silos. You collect on official, the data always stay in official. And when I say official means system which is connected to internet. You work in secret, the data always stay in secret. You work in top secret, the data always stay in top secret. It means you start aggregating data on the low side, or the terminologies get used multiple times, multiple people. They call it as low side, they call it as official, they call it as official sensitive or low trust, but they mean exactly the same. When you aggregate the data on the low side, sometimes the value of the data becomes much, much more valuable for our friends on the other side. So data aggregation is a very common issue in HMG and in defense. In fact, it exists into the mid-threat club as well. But the mid-threat club, I meant regulators, CNI, or banks. Banks comes part of the CNI anyway. But we don't because we don't have air gap systems, too much air gap systems, so we don't actually acknowledge this data aggregation issue. So we manage it differently. But air gap aggregating data on the low side exists for everybody, mostly which actually holds sensitive information. And the last problem is operational inefficiency. So assuming you're collecting data on the high side, when I said people work in silos, you collect data on the secret or top secret environment. If you have to access a part of the record, you still have to walk into that building in order to access that data. Part of the record could be a official data, but because we work in silos and they're air gapped, we have to go to that building to access it. Over COVID, this became a nightmare when some of the departments. So I was in London every single day during the COVID time. There are some departments were fully working during the COVID every single day. And the reason was you cannot access that system from home. You cannot access even the part of the record is official, you still cannot access that system. I'm giving you the problem statement first, and I'll come to the answer in a few minutes. But that has been going on for a long time. I can see somebody smiling, so probably understand the problem statement as well. Well, which is probably is the right answer. Advance of high. Okay, yeah. So, okay, there is a slide there. These air gap systems continue to exist, but over a period of last 7, 8 years, UK, in much more advanced than the US or Five Eyes, UK started working on, the people at West started working on creating a product, a physical product called high assurance gateways. And these high assurance gateways, what they do, they actually create a protocol break. So the system continue to stay as still air gapped, but it allows you to have communication somehow from low to high. If you think about the scenario, do you have to send? So you have some files on the low side. 1 second. You have some files or some documents on the low side or official, but you started typing something which becomes the higher classification. Very common problem happens in the defense and national security space. Now you need to move that file to the higher tier. Previously, I've been into one of the example where it took us almost few months in one of the defense department to move that file from low to high. And if you have to move the file from high to low, because you have to share with somebody else, it can take months before the file comes in. To solve that problem, you needed to continue to maintain these systems as air gap systems, but to solve the problem, people at West started creating a product called high assurance gateways. High assurance gateways do the protocol break that allows you to still continue to connect and work. They have gone through NCSC, high assurance processes, and they were originally designed for the file movements. Yes, these high assurance gateways are not diode. So you may hear in the future some point a term called diode, and diode is just a protocol break to do one side communication to the high side or high to low. High assurance gateways do way more than just the firewall or any other devices. They do your content checking. We can make lots of processing within the high assurance gateways before the data can land onto the high side. Before the data can land on the high side, they normally design for bidirectional communication. I say bidirectional, I'll come to in few minutes. Bidirectional, the product is designed for bidirectional, but I don't think so. Changing the culture is the most difficult part. And when I say culture means these gateways exist for a long time. Still data get replicated by the USB drives. Still data get replicated by retyping the information. Because it is very difficult for security architects to agreeing connecting the high assurance gateways, which also has the ability to send data from high to low. And high to low means higher classification to lower classification. Before I go into the CDHA itself or the solution itself, I just wanted to discuss one topic. Have I missed the slide? No, I think I have. Before going to the CDHA, I want to just discuss. So I'm assuming we understand the problem statement. And the problem, generally, the single problem statement is we work in silos. Because we work in silos, we create either aggregate data on the low side, or we are having a massive operational inefficiencies. In order to solve this, we as a company have worked with people at West to create a framework, a design pattern, which can enable HMG and defense, mostly the high threat club, to create application which can span across multiple security boundaries. It means you can actually have an application in the future which will stay on the low side, but also have a component on the high side and communicate with each other. It means you access the data, where it should belongs to. It means if data is official, it should be available on the official device. If the aggregation should be on the high side, then it should be on the high side only. So it's a disruptor. And when I say disruptor means every single application is a structured application. Every single application in HMG today work in silos. Every single application. It is very difficult to change the norm. We're challenging the norm. We're challenging that why we continue to work in one way. Why can't we have now high assurance gateways has been built? Why can't we just work now across security tiers? We are working on the solutions. We have designed the design pattern. Is it live? Answer is no. It's not live yet. It's not live yet. We are working with few high profile customers in the space, in the NS space or defense space, and it will be live some point. But it is a difficult. Why? Because it's a culture change. It's very, very difficult for SROs to decide that you can build an application which can span across security boundaries. Because when you connect to systems, it does bring a risk. CDHA is using the high assurance gateways, but the key part is it is a pure cryptography solution. So much cryptography solution has been implemented on this. We now in the current phase we are using PQC or PQC enabled, in fact, Kyber or dilithium. But in the past we have used ECDH, ECDSA, AES, RSA, wherever applicable. Anything in the low side, anything at official domain, if it get compromised, using this technology, if it get compromised, every single record uses ephemeral keys to protect data. It means an ephemeral AES 256 GCM. Everything I'm saying it is official space here, so there is nothing I'm discussing which is our proprietary or higher classification. But every single record is protected using its ephemeral keys. It means even if it get compromised, the whole database get compromised, you still protected. You still protected. For every single record, they will have to do enough processing to break the AES 256 GCM. One minute left. Is it stuck? Yeah, it's stuck. Sorry, sir. Oh, yeah, it's working now. Oh, thank you. So I think I've already talked about this. We have built this architecture with NCSC over the last 4 years. This is designed to build applications which will span across security boundaries. It is integrating with the high assurance gateways. There are some API gateways exist, and it is integrating with this also gateways, and it using the PQC technologies. Some boring stuff. Apologies, I should have done better on drawing it, but running a CEO means, oh, even over the weekend, I was busy writing the proposal. So I should have done the better on the slides, but hey how. We have done the policy-driven data movement. It means from high to low, we can actually create that what data goes where. It's always encrypted on the low side, on the official space. Only person who can decrypt the record, only person who can decrypt the record is the document which it belongs to. It means, assuming Professor Bill is a user of an application on the low side, if the data, only person who can access that or decrypt the data is Professor Bill, nobody else, because it's you, the encryptions is using it, is nobody else can decrypt that record because Professor Bill has the private key which can generate the salt to decrypt that record, nobody else. And that's in the memory. Even the user doesn't know that he has access to those keys in the memory. So we distribute the keys. We distribute the keys on the fly, and user, without knowing the user, they actually have access to the keys. Very, very high level design for CDHA. It's on our website as well. So hence, I'm happy to specify here, secret domain, multiple sources, and this device of high assurance gateways. High assurance gateways is now more mature, and UK. Outside UK, they're still not mature. US is running a program called Raise the Bar, which is still clearly they are quite behind. And this high assurance gateways is designed to protect what on the high side. CDHA uses the high assurance gateways, and what it does, it actually enables you to build application which span across security boundaries. High assurance gateways protects what's on the high side, but data is most vulnerable. The data is most vulnerable when it's at official. It means if you're building an application which actually span across security boundaries, you need more protection on the low side. And the CDHA objective is to protect that data on the low side. We've got 5 minutes left if you have any questions.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm King Karen. I work for a layer one blockchain. The technology you're using just now to segregate, I'm also ex-military, so I'm aware of the pain you've just been through. The utility that was talked about using DLT for NHS records, is there future utility? I think there is in using DLT within the MOD, but not just for different grades of secrecy, but also just personnel records and training records and competency records and all the other things that you should have in play. And all of that feeds into the secrecy grades that you've talked about.
So I'm sorry, I didn't get the question correctly. Apologies for this.
DLT, I mean, the technology that you're talking about doesn't sound like it's blockchain.
Not blockchain. It's not blockchain.
Do you see blockchain as a potential use case for?
So I think this principle is a little bit different than the blockchain. In fact, we are discussing with MOD a solution. We are discussing a solution with MOD and Professor Bill as well together to create a blockchain-based distribution of documents with NATO and non-NATO countries as well. That particular use case and protection, I personally think is still 3 to 4 years away, or at least it may take even longer because that's changing the perspective completely. Currently, everything is segregated, silos, low, medium, low secret, top secret. We challenging it completely. That particular project, I was there with Professor Bill, met that guy. So we are in the discussion, but I personally think it's still a long way. Currently, defense and national security cannot get over the silo systems. Distribution using blockchain, I personally think is a long way. Is more of a culture, is more of a culture shift. That particular element, the risk of any information leakage is threat to the life. And that's where is very, very cautious steps.
Just to take it back into the record. The NHS records piece talked about using that as an immutable record that's transferable across jurisdictions to enable you to, the same as for the military records of their personnel, which also form under classifications of secrecy. But say you've got an individual not just moving from one part of the military to another part of the UK military, but moving from the UK military on a foreign exchange. They still need to be able to evidence their competency capabilities. They still need to take their medical records. They still need to basically have some level of scrutiny over who they are and what they're doing there.
So I think there are a lot of systems in government uses this. If you think about the vetting even goes much deeper into this. But as I said, we work in silos currently. Currently, we work in silos. And that's why we're saying at least start aggregating it correctly in the right places. Blockchain may become an issue. NHS, I'm really sorry, I'm not, because I'm working in a very focused small space. So I don't have the visibility or viewpoint on the NHS.
Okay, thanks.
Apologies.
Just another question over here.
Thanks very much for your presentation. So you talked about overclassification, which is a really big issue. Have you got any ideas as how you can solve or maybe deconflict this overclassification issue?
Way beyond my pay grade. So I think I can only talk about how we move data from low to high or build applications. How you solve the classifications. So I actually report to that particular person in the where I work, but way beyond my pay grade. So they took almost 10 years, 12 years to retire confidential classification. So there used to be confidential classification as well. 2014, that confidential classification got retired. Still that's not over the line. So retiring classification or removing these boundaries. I don't think so.
So not even the application
Not in my lifetime. I
of
think.
semantic AI, for instance, to understand the content and therefore work out whether it still needs to be classified or not.
So all of these are future possibilities. Currently, I don't think so. Is in my viewpoint, and this is very restricted. My viewpoint. There may be somebody else who may have a different viewpoint. I personally think they are still 10, 15, 20, or 50 years away from any of these.
Thank you.
And that's that particular space I'm talking about.